Tonight, business leaders in the U.S. have a clear message for the White House. They like the free trade agreement with Canada and Mexico, and they want it to stay.
It is the most consequential trade agreement on the planet.
Threats from Donald Trump that the U.S. could scuttle the deal as Mark Carney heads to Washington. At Issue will be here on what it could mean for trade talks. A new report predicts you're going to pay even more at the grocery store next year, especially for meat.
When I'm shopping, I look, oh, okay, this chicken is on sale today.
It is getting more expensive, yeah.
Why the price of what we eat keeps climbing. And protest grows over Israel's involvement in Eurovision.
Once people start to boycott it, then it becomes political to still participate in it.
Why 4 countries say they're pulling out of the contest.
From CBC News, this is The National with Erica Johnson.
Thanks for joining us. Adrian is on assignment. The Prime Minister is gearing up for a big day in Washington. He'll be there Friday to take part in a draw for the 2026 World Cup. But all eyes will be on what happens on the sidelines. Mark Carney is expected to meet with Donald Trump and with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum as hearings continue not far away about the future of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade agreement. It's up for review next year, and the hearings are a chance for American business leaders to let government know their views. But as Katie Simpson explains, there are growing threats, too, that Trump may look to exit the deal.
Behind closed doors at the high-stakes trade hearings, a theme emerged as dozens of witnesses weighed in. Save CUSMA, or the USMCA, as it's known here in Washington.
It is the most consequential trade agreement on the planet.
Renew the USMCA. Get this done. Start normalizing trade relations, tone down the temperature, and get to work.
The trade agreement between Canada, the U.S., and Mexico will be reviewed and likely renegotiated next June. But concern is growing the Trump administration may abandon the deal. Jamieson Greer, the top U.S. trade official, said the president only wants a good deal, and the U.S. may need to revise it, review it, or exit it.
Can you also talk about the USMCA?
Donald Trump made similar threats at the White House.
We'll either let it expire or we'll maybe work out another deal with Mexico and Canada.
The deal doesn't actually just expire, but the U.S. could leave it by giving 6 months' notice.
I'm not surprised by those comments. When I hear those, my heart sinks to my feet.
I think it'd be an economic catastrophe for all 3 countries.
Though Trump's threat to pull out is also being viewed with some skepticism.
I think they said it's possible, and it's also possible the Toronto Maple Leafs might win a Stanley Cup one year, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen anytime soon. I think it's classic negotiation tactics.
Trump wants concessions from Canada and Mexico and may demand changes from the steel industry amid complaints from U.S. producers.
We cannot allow North America to continue to be a dumping zone for excess capacity for steel.
And there's pressure from a powerful auto workers union to make significant changes, including better protections, improved conditions, and growing manufacturing jobs at home. And if that is not brought into this deal, what do you think?
We should get rid of it, to be blunt.
All of these tensions will be put to the side, at least for part of Friday. Prime Minister Mark Carney will visit D.C. to be with Trump and with Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum at the FIFA World Cup final draw. They'll be on stage together, all 3 of them, for at least 2 hours.
And Katie, on top of that, Carney is expected to get some one-on-one time with Trump.
Yeah, the Prime Minister's office says it will likely be a brief conversation. He'll also chat privately with Sheinbaum. 2 Canadian government sources tell me expectations are low. The talk with Trump will lead to any breakthroughs on the trade front, emphasizing this event is really about celebrating FIFA soccer.
Thanks for this, Katie Simpson in Washington. This conversation continues in a bit. Rosie and the At Issue panel are here to weigh in on Carney's trip and the future of CUSMA. That's in about 25 minutes. And an escalation of the ongoing trade tensions with the U.S. tonight. The federal government says it will give a notice of default to automotive giant Stellantis for not keeping its end of a contract to keep jobs in Canada.
Defending these jobs mean defending Canada's economic backbone and the livelihoods of countless families.
The contracts were related to projects in Ontario tied to hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer funds from Ottawa. Stellantis shifted some vehicle production to the U.S. in October. A new Pentagon report says U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth could have endangered troops when he added a journalist to an unsecure group chat. Back in March, details of an attack on militants in Yemen were discussed in a Signal chat when Hegseth, using his personal device, mistakenly added a journalist. The report found it went against policy, but said Hegseth has authority to determine what information is classified. He responded on social media saying, "No classified information, total exoneration, case closed." Sticker shock at the grocery store may be about to get worse. Food prices in Canada are already high, and as Anis Hidari shows us, a new forecast suggests relief isn't coming anytime soon.
Canadians aren't imagining it. Buying meat at the grocery store keeps getting pricier.
When I'm shopping, I look, oh, okay, this chicken is on sale today. I guess I'll buy that one. Maybe try and go to Costco to stock up, fill up the freezer.
It is getting more expensive, yeah. Like if you want to buy some spaghetti or something and put some ground beef on there, it's like $3 more or something.
And new research from Dalhousie University predicts this trend will continue. Next year, meat could go up in price faster than many other foods. Overall, food prices are predicted to go up between 4 and 6% in 2026. Meat is predicted to go up by 5 to 7%. Some factors behind this include higher packaging and processing costs. And herds themselves are smaller this year, including some ranches downsizing. That's not happening at this BC ranch, but they understand why.
Older ranching families that don't have younger generation coming into that are getting out. I mean, it's the best time to get out. It's high prices for cattle right now.
And that could have a cascade effect on more than just beef.
A lot of cattle ranchers are exiting the industry, which is impacting inventory overall. So people are noticing higher prices. They're pivoting it over to other sources like chicken, which is why chicken prices are also on the rise.
Vegetables could also jump between 3 and 5%. Overall, these researchers predict a family of 4 could spend up to $995 more next year on food. But remember, these predictions are just that. Last year, the same researchers estimated fruit and vegetables would go up in price, and the actual retail price went in the opposite direction. Anis Hidari, CBC News, Calgary.
Concern tonight about rising flu numbers, with some hospitals saying they're seeing a surge in severe cases among kids, most of whom haven't been vaccinated. And as Selena Alders explains, they're worried the worst could be yet to come.
Flu cases in Canada are climbing fast, and kids are being hit hard. At Ottawa's Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, or CHEO, 8 times more children tested positive for influenza in November compared to the same time last year. Twice as many pediatric patients needed to be hospitalized, and CHEO says most of the kids coming into its ER haven't had a flu shot.
We did see, I think, close to 300 patients coming through our emerge in one day, which is a significant increase.
The Montreal Children's Hospital ER was quiet until mid-November, but it's now seeing a surge in patients, many with flu-like symptoms.
5 to 7 days of fever, cough, malaise, pain in the joints, some headaches, some vomiting.
National data shows positive pediatric tests for influenza A have jumped significantly across the country since October.
My son's had it 3 times now.
Michelle McPhail and her son have been homesick with what she calls their worst case of flu ever.
We'll just let it run its course. I don't think we will get the flu shot.
We do ask our patients and families when they come to the emergency department whether or not they've received the flu vaccine.
Although this year's flu vaccine is not a perfect match with the emerging H3N2 influenza strain, health officials say it still helps.
We know that vaccines can provide some protection against the severity of disease, prevent deaths, prevent hospitalizations, and that's really important. So the message is the same: to get vaccinated.
With peak flu season still weeks ahead, healthcare professionals warn now is the time to take precautions to help ease some of the pressures on the healthcare system. Selena Alders, CBC News, Halifax.
In BC, John Rustad has resigned as leader of the opposition Conservatives 1 day after the party's board said it fired him.
I don't view what has happened here as a takeover or a hostile takeover by the former BC Liberals. This is just what happens in politics.
Wednesday's chaotic revolt also saw the majority of caucus members demand his ouster. Rustad initially refused to step down. He now says he wants to avert a civil war within the party. Rustad will stay on as an MLA. Trevor Halford has been named interim leader. A retired Saskatchewan teacher is speaking out tonight after falling prey to a cryptocurrency scam that used deepfake video of the Prime Minister on what looked like a CBC News program. Katie Swires shows us how it happened and how police are playing catch-up.
No one is answering Lynn Fanoff's calls now.
The number you have dialed is not in service or has been disconnected.
But for weeks, he was talking to what he thought were financial advisors about investing on a cryptocurrency site.
It looks pretty good. For $365, you made $25, you made $15.
The investments started small, but the profits in his bank account added up. So he invested 3,000 Canadian, money he later could not withdraw.
All of a sudden I realized, you know what? We're not playing with money that I made. We're playing with my own money. And I'm not getting my own money back.
Fanoff was taken in by something that looked like this. A deepfake video that looks a lot like CBC News content, showing Mark Carney pushing crypto, which appeared on his smart TV, just like a real news program.
It seems so real.
In a statement, CBC's head of public affairs, Chuck Thompson, noted the alarming rise in fake ads and news stories and said the CBC is committed to fighting disinformation. This expert teaches a virtual cybersecurity course for seniors.
A lot of people don't realize the extent of AI these days, and the capabilities are growing daily.
After being victimized, Fanoff took the course.
And I thought, oh, this is me.
Fanoff reported the loss to Prince Albert Police, but they told him they would not pursue it. After CBC reached out for comment, they took another look, saying the initial assessment did not meet the expected standard of service.
We need to be upfront. We do not have the capabilities and the expertise.
Caught with
Fanoff's advice is to keep your wallet closed to people on the internet. If you give anything, there's a good chance you'll never see your money again. Katie Swires, CBC News, Prince Albert, Saskatchewan.
Now we turn to a terrifying glimpse inside the regime of deposed Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad. Images shared with CBC Radio Canada and the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. They include evidence of torture, starvation, and murder. And while we aren't showing the worst of it, what you will see is disturbing. As senior international correspondent Margaret Evans explains, the documents could provide closure for families and proof of what happened to thousands of victims disappeared by the regime.
The brutal secrets of Bashar al-Assad's killing machine have long festered in the dark. Occasional glimpses smuggled out of prisons turned death camps. A year after the former Syrian president was forced from power, they're still being unearthed. The latest, a catalogue of deaths shared with a German broadcaster. Photos of more than 10,000 bodies, most too gruesome to show. We've blurred these images of some detainees in Assad's vast network of prisons. They originated with a Syrian military officer in charge of preserving evidence or withholding his identity for his security. How we typically photograph the body is we take 3 pictures, he's saying. A long image, a frontal image, and a bust. These are the legal parameters. That documentation now offers hope to at least some of the Syrians still hunting for news of more than 180,000 people the dictatorship is believed to have disappeared. This was Sednaya prison, just days after Assad fled Syria. We were there as people flocked to it and other prisons, hoping for a trace of someone they loved and taking in the reality of what they must have endured.
The case building process is extremely easy if you have the primary source materials, because everything was documented to the nth degree.
Canadian war crimes investigator Bill Wiley and his team have collected more than 1 million pages of evidence against Assad, smuggled out of Syria during the war and stored in a secret location for security reasons. He says the path to accountability is still a long one.
70,000 pages, or even the 1.3 million that we extracted from Syria during the war is, in fact, a drop in the bucket compared to what's sitting unprocessed now in Syria.
Much of it is confirmation of what the world already knew about the Assad regime and its horrors. But it's also a reminder that there is still much more to be done. Margaret Evans, CBC News, London.
Another note on the photos in the dossier. They have been shared with German authorities who've been at the forefront of prosecuting members of the Assad regime. Names associated with the photos have also been shared with the UN and Syrian initiatives that help victims of detention and torture. In the UK, a public inquiry is blaming Vladimir Putin for the death of an innocent woman. It found Putin authorized a nerve agent attack on British soil in a failed attempt to kill a former double agent. Chris Brown unpacks the findings.
The findings of the British inquiry that concluded Russian assassins used Novichok nerve agent that ultimately killed an unsuspecting Don Sturgis is another reminder that long before his invasion of Ukraine, Vladimir Putin was already attacking Europe.
I've concluded that the operation to assassinate Sergei Skripal must have been authorized at the highest level, indeed by President Putin.
The movements of the Russian agents who in 2018 came to kill Skripal, a retired Russian double agent, were retraced from Moscow to Salisbury, England. Both Skripal and his visiting daughter Yulia touched a door handle smeared with the toxin and barely survived. Months later, Don Sturgis handled the discarded fake perfume bottle that contained the Novichok, and she was killed.
We can have Dawn back now. She's been public for 7 years. We can finally put her to peace.
Moral responsibility lies with Putin, and it's further evidence of the shocking and reckless, hostile activity on UK soil.
The Novichok attacks form part of a pattern of ongoing and escalating Russian hybrid warfare against Europe, including the suspected cutting of undersea cables, sabotaging railways, and allegedly using drones to shut down major European airports. Ukraine's president has repeatedly warned that Putin is preparing for much bigger attacks.
He will try to find weak places in Europe, in NATO countries. He will try to do it.
Russia's government has always denied it poisoned anybody, and there were more denials Thursday. Britain's response now, as in 2018, was to hit Russia's spy agency with sanctions, which the Kremlin says are meaningless. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
4 countries are pulling out of the Eurovision contest after the decision was made to allow Israel to compete.
It looks like it's going to lead to the biggest boycott of Eurovision ever for a political reason.
The division emerging ahead of the world's biggest singing competition. Canada's path to a World Cup is about to be decided.
Luck of the draw is just, hugely important.
Who they could face in the group stage. And excelling at Excel. We're back in 2. Manitoba plans to sell off all the U.S.-made alcohol pulled from shelves earlier this year amid the trade war. Proceeds from the sales before Christmas will go to several charities. The province estimates the move will generate $500,000. Nova Scotia announced a similar move last week. 4 countries are pulling out of next year's Eurovision Song Contest after Israel received the all-clear from organizers to participate. As Deanna Sumanak-Johnson shows, the competition, meant to unite, is divided by politics once again.
Israel will be allowed to perform at Eurovision, according to the body that governs the annual music contest. That decision has prompted Spain, the Netherlands, Ireland, and Slovenia to say they will boycott the competition in protest of Israel's conduct in the war in Gaza.
We're talking about the biggest song contest in the world, and it's a contest that stands for building bridges, for diversity, for tolerance.
But experts say Eurovision has also always been a political stage where countries use patriotism and flag waving to boost their images abroad.
It's going to be a unique chapter because it looks like it's going to lead to the biggest boycott of Eurovision ever for a political reason.
Israel's President Isaac Herzog said he commends the decision, adding, "I hope that the competition will remain one that champions culture, music, friendship between nations, and cross-border cultural understanding." A different story in Ireland, where the national broadcaster issued a statement saying that participating alongside Israel would be unconscionable given the appalling loss of lives in Gaza and the humanitarian crisis there. Observers say more countries could pull out, and Eurovision's brand as impartial and music-focused could suffer further damage.
I think this is gonna create a lot of debate, and the countries will need to take a stand now, because now once people start to boycott it, then it becomes political to still participate in it.
Eurovision will be held in Vienna next May.
New rules will be in place, including voting and promotional spending limits prompted by allegations against Israel in last year's competition. And that is the scene Canada will be looking at as it weighs entering future Eurovision contests. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
The FIFA World Cup draw is set for tomorrow when Canada will learn its early opponents.
The fact that you're playing in a World Cup in your backyard, well, that pride is just going to go through the roof.
Why the result could be critical to the team's success. After the break, Rosie's here with At Issue.
Hey, Erica, tonight we're going to talk about the future of that free trade agreement with the United States.
It expires in about a year, and we'll either let it expire or we'll maybe work out another deal with Mexico and Canada.
So what could come next for the deal, and what does it signal about the future of Canada-U.S. relations? Chantal, Althea, and Andrew join me to talk about that and more.
The Olympic flame has been handed to Italy as it prepares to host the 2026 Milano Cortina Winter Games. After a ceremony in Athens, the flame traveled to Rome, starting a 1,200-kilometer journey around the country. The torch relay ends in February at the opening ceremony with the lighting of the Olympic cauldron. Canada's men's national soccer team is just hours from finding out its opening stage opponents for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. The draw is happening in Washington, and as Jamie Strachan shows us, it will give Canadians a look at what's ahead in the competition.
Early ball inside, Promise David!
After years of preparation and anticipation, a clear picture of Canada's World Cup journey is about to emerge.
Luck of the draw is just, hugely important in terms of setting teams up for success or failure.
3 countries. Alongside Mexico and the United States, Canada will host the 48-team tournament this summer. A draw held Friday in Washington will determine the groups and matchups for the opening round. Countries have been divided into 4 so-called pots, with the hosts and top-ranked sides in Pot 1. The remaining pots are based on world rankings. For Canada, a bad scenario could see them in a group with tough opponents like Croatia, Norway, and if they qualify, Italy. A much easier road for Canada would see games against lower-ranked nations, Austria, South Africa, and New Zealand.
The wonderful thing about the World Cup is you kind of get sort of pooled into a group against teams that, you don't normally play.
This will be Canada's 3rd World Cup appearance. In 2022, Canada was in a group of perennial powerhouses and lost all 3 games. Bob Lenarduzzi played on Canada's first World Cup side in 1986 and says no matter who Canada draws, home field will be a huge advantage.
Anytime you pull the red jersey on as a player, you feel, I'm getting goosebumps now as I'm saying, you feel a sense of pride. And The fact that you're playing in a World Cup in your backyard, well, that pride is just going to go through the roof.
Canada will play its first game June 12th in Toronto. Fans like Azaz Sheikh, who has traveled to multiple World Cups, can't wait to see who they'll be up against.
It's almost like a Christmas Eve kind of feeling. So we'll have the whole family together tomorrow. We'll have snacks. We'll be watching everything unfold.
He certainly won't be alone as the road to the most watched tournament in the world takes shape. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
Now let's break down the news shaping our world. And tonight, Rosie's here with At Issue.
At issue tonight, free trade renegotiations. Donald Trump is not committing to renewing the trade deal he signed.
It expires in about a year, and we'll either let it expire or we'll maybe work out another deal with Mexico and Canada.
One of his trade representatives says the U.S. could withdraw from the deal altogether. The Liberals say they are working to keep it.
We will work to protect what we've gained in CUSMA.
So what do the president's comments mean for the future of free trade between Canada and the U.S. and Mexico? And as the prime minister heads to Washington tomorrow, what could it mean for Carney's push for a deal with the U.S.? I'm Rosemary Barton, here to break it all down tonight. Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, Althea Raj. I should point out that the prime minister is not going to Washington for talks. He's going for a FIFA event where he hopes to speak with the president. But Andrew, I'm going to start with you this week. What do you make there of where this is going, or whether this gives us any indication? Because I do think that it sort of stepped up the rhetoric, at least, about the threat of the U.S. just walking away entirely.
Yeah, it's not a threat that we've never heard before from Donald Trump. It's part of the art of the deal, if I can use that hackneyed line. It's also, something you would make reasonable steps to try to avert. I don't think anybody disputes that. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be in any negotiations of any kind, you have to be prepared to walk away from the table if the terms are not to your liking. And we have to be able to wrap our mind around that possibility. It's not the end of the world. It wouldn't be good, but Canada existed before the free trade agreement, and it would exist after one. I'm not saying we should do that. I'm not saying we should be too hasty to walk away from the table. But if we don't establish to ourselves, as much as to our negotiating partners, that we have some kind of bottom line, then we'll just be taken to the cleaners.
But if Trump is prepared to walk away, I mean, that's what he's signaling effectively, Althea. How does the Canadian government respond to that, knowing that it could all fall apart?
I don't think it changes anything, because if he intended to actually walk away, he would say this. If he intended not to walk away, he would still say this. What's happening in Washington this week is a public hearing of basically what the U.S. trade rep has to tell Congress what its position is early in the new year, and we will know what the U.S. government intends to do. And so this is all perhaps blustering, perhaps not, but we already have a pretty good idea of what it is that they would like fixed if we do review it to fix it. I think it would be quite surprising, frankly, if the president decides on July 1st that actually he wants to renew the deal for another 16 years. I don't think that's going to happen. And the default, if we don't renegotiate something, is that we go from year to year. Mm-hmm. And that also serves the Americans' purposes, because I don't know, in the lead up to the midterms, they want to blow everything apart. But they do want to create uncertainty, just as they have. And a year-to-year review would create that uncertainty. So, they hold pretty decent cards, and we will have a better idea of where the conversation goes early in the new year.
Though a year-to-year review, Chantal, for Canada wouldn't be terrible either, I would think, because then you're sort of waiting out, as Althea says, the midterms and the president potentially.
Up to a point, but with this, I do agree that whatever was said this week is not anything that you should take to the bank and take too seriously. Why? Because it could change next week or next month. But what it does say about year-to-year reviews is that if the U.S. is going to come around to merits of CUSMA, it's going to be through internal pressure in the U.S. and not anything we say. And true, we cannot be going around saying we want this deal to remain at all costs, because then you might as well not come to the table. Why negotiate with someone who can send you his terms and you can sign off your rendition and move on from there? But I think it would be a mistake to hang on to every signal that comes from Washington until it's actually a real signal.
For sure. And that's why I was a little reluctant to talk about it tonight, frankly. But because the Prime Minister is going down there tomorrow for the FIFA draw, because the President of Mexico is going, and there is a hope that the three of them talk in some way. I would note that Dominic LeBlanc is in Mexico City doing some trade stuff on that front. I wonder, Andrew, whether this could be the opportunity or the moment to try and restart at least the sectoral talks that might be happening kind of informally, but aren't really happening.
Well, I hope we're having talks with the Mexicans in particular. The more alarming signal, whatever you want to call it, that came out in the last couple of days was this idea that maybe they'll do separate deals with Mexico and with Canada. Again, could just be rhetoric. But I made this point before, you don't want to be the spokes to the Americans' hub. If you have two separate agreements, then it absolutely favors the Americans that you can locate your plant in the States and have access to all three markets, and it would be the only country that would have that access. So I think we really want to make sure that we're doing common cause with the Mexicans. Strength in numbers. This is the recurring thing whether you're talking about Trump's domestic opponents or whether you're talking about the international arena. Don't allow them to pick you off one by one. Form a common front.
And so is there any kind of pressure then, Althea, on the Prime Minister tomorrow when he goes to do this soccer event with the President?
Well, I mean, I think there'll be pressure from the media that has gone to see him do this about, what have you accomplished, the normal questions. But the two are still talking in a social manner, so it's not like the door is completely closed. I don't know that there's actual interest from the Canadian government to move on sectoral talks if they have to concede more than they were willing to concede earlier in the fall, because the conversation in the United States is turning, and it's turning in our favor against the president's agenda. So it's not a bad strategy to not capitulate right away. I would say on the Mexico front, I mean, that has long been the Canadian strategy to make sure that Mexico is still at the table, that we're still building, except for that little blip. Remember when we had Doug Ford say that actually we'd be better off without the Mexicans? But what you do realize listening to these talks in Washington this week is that there are way more concerns about the deal with Mexico as a partner than with Canada. And there are things that we have done that probably will hurt us in negotiations in terms of, I think it's debatable whether we lived up to our end of the bargain on dairy, for example, and allowing American access into Canada. So I do think everybody knows kind of where the ball is going, though, so none of this is too surprising.
Last word to you, Chantal, on this.
Yeah, well, from the Carney government's perspective, no one wants to bring home sectoral deals that involve concessions that will cost you more than the success of getting a deal. So I kind of get the hesitation or the well-disguised eagerness to resume conversations on sectoral trade deals, because what if you come home and you say, I have a win, and then people look at the cost of the win and you actually do worse for those concessions than for the credit you hoped from getting a deal.
I mean, they're also going to do the World Cup draw. That's also very exciting tomorrow, but not relevant for this panel. Okay, we're going to take a little break here. When we come back, we will take a look at how politicians in Quebec are responding to Mark Miller's return to the Prime Minister's cabinet.
I was a little restless, but it's nice to get the opportunity to keep on doing some amazing work.
So what's been made of how Quebec's premier and the leader of the Parti Québécois and others are responding to some comments that Minister Miller made? What does it mean for the Liberals? That's next. At issue, the French language debate. The return of Mark Miller to cabinet as Minister of Canadian Identity and responsible for official languages has fired up a number of Quebec politicians, particularly after Miller said he was fed up with the politicization of the issue. Premier François Legault called the minister a disgrace to all Quebecers.
I've been part of a government that recognized the decline of the French language across Canada and modified the law on official languages. It's nice to talk, but actions count, and I think I've proved myself.
So what does this battle over language mean for the Liberals in Ottawa? How is it being used by politicians inside Quebec? Let's bring everyone back. Chantal, Andrew, and Althea. So this not only riled up the Premier, who we've talked about before in Quebec, is struggling mightily politically, but it also riled up the leader of the Parti Québécois, who went after some of the leaders in the cultural community in Quebec for applauding the idea that Minister Miller was from Quebec and is back in cabinet. Is this about French language, Chantal? Was there something there that Mark Miller said that was offensive to Quebec, or is this about the politics and trying to create a rift between Ottawa and Quebec?
No, it's a series of errors on the part of many of the people who are playing in this game. The first error is, if you don't want to politicize the French language debate, then you don't raise it as an issue if you're a federal politician, because you're basically making it political. So those were useless comments. Mark Miller could have just said, I was part of a government that recognized that there are challenges to the French language, and I voted for a new Official Languages Act. Let's move on. The other thing one needs to know is that Mark Miller and the Legault government have had many run-ins over immigration, over his time at immigration.
CAC government.
Yes, do not invite both of them at the same party. That was true before he was reappointed to cabinet, and François Legault was incensed with the notion that nobody cares in Ottawa that he's not happy about this appointment because they think he's a dead premier walking. But and let me surprise you, in the end, the federal government got a big break this week, and that is because the PQ leader, rather than keep the focus where it was in the House of Commons on Mark Miller, turned his guns on Quebec's cultural organizations. And in the process, shifted the cameras away from Mark Miller and the federal government onto himself, attacking his natural allies. And at the end of the week, the biggest loser is the Parti Québécois leader.
Yeah, and he has, I don't know if he's apologized, but he stood by his words, that's for sure, in the interviews I've seen. But it's curious that he didn't take the opportunity to drive home the wedge, I guess. But Andrew, talk to me, I guess, more about what this tells you about maybe Mark Miller. I mean, he's certainly a frank guy, but I don't know if the political instinct is the right one in this instance.
Well, yeah, but let's look at that offensive, disgraceful thing he said.
Yeah.
He said that there's always a problem with the French language in Quebec. We always want to try and support it, but it's not heading towards Louisiana. I'm paraphrasing. That it's not, the only acceptable stand for anybody in public life in Quebec is to claim that the French language is heading towards Louisiana. It's maximal crisis. Anything deviating from that, you always get into trouble, which is a peril of any form of identity politics. While it parades around in the name of pluralism, it's really not in the end about differences between groups. It's about enforcing sameness within the group. So he had deviated from the one correct line in Quebec politics, and so he was excoriated for that. And similarly, the Quebec cultural community was accused essentially of being disloyal to Quebecers because they were applauding his appointment. That tells you all you need to know about the nature of nationalism in particular. Some people would like Canadian nationalism to be just as intolerant and narrow-minded. I just really think it's an illustration of the perils of identity politics.
I mean, I'll let others weigh in. Except there is, I would say, a difference between identity and language, right? You can put them together, but there is also
they are put together.
they are put together, but it is a little different. Okay, I'm going to get Althea and then I'll get Chantal to weigh in.
I don't want to criticize a politician, because there's not that many of them, who actually tries to answer the substance of a reporter's question. Do I think he regrets what he said and the way he said it? Absolutely. But it's also sometimes, kind of refreshing to have somebody that doesn't just speak in canned lines. And part of this is also, I believe, Minister Miller reflecting on some of the old battles, that, to Andrew's point, that are about identity, like Bill 21 and now Bill 21 2.0. What is interesting is that a little bit like with the debates here, they're upping the ante, like saying that he's denying the decline of the French language, which he did not do this week. So I don't know why you need to grandiose up your opponent, but it does feel like the big loser of the week, and I agree with Chantal on this, is Pierre Plamondon, the leader of the Parti québécois. This man this week showed that he's quite a petty man, and you're either with us or against us, is what he told the culture groups in Quebec. Yeah. All because their great affront was that they sent a welcome to the new heritage minister. And then it's like you're intellectually was dishonest, vacuous, intellectually vacuous. They're groveling to the federal government. They should, like I am filled with shame because they should be filled with shame about being so supported by federal dollars. And this is why they can't take part in this conversation. Is this the man that you want to have as the Premier of Quebec?
Yeah.
I think it's been a terrible, terrible look. And, the week started off bad for Mark Miller, but he's probably really happy the way things turned out.
Yeah, it also seemed like really old-fashioned arguments from the leader of the Parti québécois, frankly, like arguments that you would have heard decades ago. But Chantal, give me your take.
Actually, not that old-fashioned in the sense that I can't imagine Jacques Parizeau or Lucien Bouchard or René Lévesque ever going after the culture community.
Yeah, because they're their allies.
In that fashion. He literally accused them of lacking loyalty in Quebec. No one's talking about Mark Miller anymore here. They're all talking about Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon and his strange sense that if you're not with him, you're disloyal to Quebec. So I understand that Mr. Miller did not want to cause whatever happened, but at the end of the day, it turned out to make life a lot easier for the Carney government. It allowed the Carney government to feature a budget that was actually pretty good for the culture file, not just in Quebec, but across the board. And it actually served to remind Quebecers that the federal government, when it comes to culture, is a major partner in this province. And that matters on a week when they have a former environment minister going on every platform saying how the government is failing on climate. So unexpected Christmas gift came early, and thank you, Parti québécois should be what Mr. Carney should be saying.
Last 30 to you or so, Andrew?
I just have a quick note on the Guilbeault and the MOU file. The polling now, the recent polling out of Quebec shows that 42% favor the MOU to 23% against, so a strong plurality, even in Quebec, in favor of the MOU.
You have to let me qualify this. The issue isn't, do you care about the pipeline far away? The issue is, do you trust Mark Carney to be who you thought he was?
Well, and again
and nobody has asked that.
Again, if you look at the approval polls, he's out polling Guilbeault 2-1.
Okay.
I think we all need to wait for the Leger poll in Quebec before we weigh in on that issue, because the sample size will be a lot larger.
You know what Andrew did, though? Andrew just decided to start talking about something he wanted to talk about. So I don't know what's going on. Thank you all for that exciting debate that is at issue on The National. We're going to continue this conversation, different things. So we're going to talk about John Rustad's resignation, forced resignation from the BC Conservatives. You can catch that on YouTube or the At Issue podcast. Now back to Erica in Vancouver.
Coming up, an international competition to crown the Microsoft Excel World Champion.
The top people kind of come to Vegas to duke it out in an esports arena.
We'll hear from the winner next in our moment. This is Diarmuid Early, the winner of the Microsoft Excel World Championship, a 3-day esports event in Las Vegas. To take home the top prize, competitors must build spreadsheets to perform tasks and solve problems based on a specific theme or game. And this year, that theme was origami. And the winner makes our moment.
We have our champion.
It feels amazing. Everybody starts yelling your name, and it's super exciting. The Microsoft Excel World Championships, it's basically a problem-solving competition through Microsoft Excel. We get various different kind of games, cases, challenges that we have to solve The top people kind of come to Vegas to duke it out in an esports arena. Each task is worth a certain number of points, and it's just whoever gets to the most points by the end. If you get everything done ahead of time, then you can just stop and walk off. I have been a perennial letdown to my supporters up until now. I've usually gone in as either the sort of first or second seed and had a terrible track record when it came to the knockouts. So I'm glad to be able to say, hey guys, I did it this time. People just lost their minds. There's such a strong community around this whole thing. Like, it's great to win, but honestly, these are some of my favorite people to spend time with. It was amazing.
And Diarmid beat 23 other grand final competitors to take the title. And the prize, not just a trophy, not just one of those giant wrestling belts. He also walked away with $5,000 in cash because he clearly excelled at all those spreadsheets. From all of us at The National, thank you for being with us. I'm Erica Johnson. Take care.